Good evening. I'm Michelle Karlenzig. Welcome to APTN National News Weekend. A woman from the James Smith Cree Nation went to the emergency room in Prince Albert, Saskatchewan, because she thought she broke her ankle. She ended up with severe burns on her arms and believes she was misdiagnosed. Now, the Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is calling for a thorough investigation into what happened. APTN's Priscilla Wolf has the story. And a warning, some viewers may find the images in this piece disturbing.
At around midnight on June 30th, Jeanette Sanderson went to the Prince Albert emergency room thinking her ankle was broken. Sanderson says a nurse at the Victoria Hospital came and administered an injection into her IV, which she does not know the contents of.
As soon as that syringe went in, there was a little bit going in. I started burning right away, and she said, "It'll go away." So I started crying. I said, "It's not going away." I said, my whole hand is burning." She said, "Just wait, I'm just about done," she said. I said, no, stop," I told her. I told her to stop like 3 or 4 times, and she didn't listen. She said, "Oh, it'll go away here. Pain will go away." And this is the worst pain I ever had.
Sanderson says the injection led to severe disfiguring burns on her body. Sanderson is speaking out because she doesn't want any other First Nations patients to have to experience what she went through. The Federation of Sovereign Indigenous Nations is backing her up.
What this lady went through is torture. They tortured this poor lady to the point where she was bearing the pain 24/7. And we will do all we can as a federation, legally, politically, technically, to right the wrong and to make sure that it doesn't happen again.
Vice Chief David Pratt also wants the federal government to support the FSIN in developing an ombudsman office to do an investigation. The Federation is also supporting the Prince Albert Grand Council to open its own hospital.
We're pushing for the Grand Council as well for their hospital. If the federal government is serious about reconciliation, then we need to be able to set up our own systems because the current systems are failing our people.
APTN contacted the Saskatchewan Health Authority to comment on the incident. They stated in an email, Saskatchewan Health Authority operational leaders are aware of this situation, and the SHA has already been in contact with the patient and family. An investigation about the quality of life concerns is ongoing. Priscilla Wolf, APTN National News, Saskatoon.
An Anishinaabe family from Pinemutang, 200 kilometers north of Winnipeg, has won a decade-long human rights battle against the Manitoba government. An adjudicator ruled Manitoba discriminated against the disabled teen and his mother in denying them access to services that non-Indigenous people in Manitoba receive. Melissa Ridgen explains.
A Manitoba human rights adjudicator has awarded $42,000 to Dewey Pruden, who suffers from a severe neurological disorder, and his mother, Harriet. It was short of the $400,000 sought when the complaint was filed back in 2010. While the adjudicator ruled this week that the family was discriminated against, he stopped short of saying the government's policies amount to systemic discrimination. In a statement, Harriet Pruden, who is a longtime advocate for Jordan's principle, said, "We appreciate that the board recognized the experience of discrimination against our son Dewey and our family. However, we're saddened that the discrimination against other First Nation children with disabilities was not acknowledged. Manitoba has 45 days to pay. A separate human rights complaint continues against the federal government." Melissa Ridgen, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
The 60s Scoop Indigenous Society of Alberta has called on Alberta Premier Jason Kenney to fire a recently hired longtime associate. Chris Champion is now a curriculum advisor for social studies for kindergarten to grade 4 students. But he has a controversial view of Indigenous peoples. APTN Chris Stewart has the story.
Premier Jason Kenney is once again taking fire for a recent hiring of a longtime political associate. Paul Bunner was hired in May as a speechwriter. Several Indigenous groups called for his resignation or firing soon after. Bunner has written that residential schools were a bogus genocide story. He is still employed. Now, Kenney has hired another associate, Chris Champion. Champion is a social studies expert and is helping develop the curriculum for kindergarten to grade 4 students. On Wednesday, August 19th, Adam North Pagan, the president of the 60 Scoop Indigenous Society, held a press conference with NDP critics to denounce Champion's hiring. Champion has said and written in the past that blanket exercises are brainwashing children, and that inclusion of First Nations perspectives is a fad.
It's very, very appalling that the Premier of the province of Alberta, Jason Kenney, is making these kind of decisions and making these kind of moves. And it's almost like he wants to erase the true history of Canada.
Richard FSIN is the NDP Indigenous Relations critic.
This is a person who has written that Indigenous content in curriculum is social engineering and is a fad. He has called important teaching techniques like the blanket exercise brainwashing. He's questioned the truth of residential school survivors and written about a preoccupation with victimhood.
FSIN says there is no place for Champion's views in elementary schools.
I'm very frustrated that we're here again talking about another one of Jason Kenney's closest advisors, who's intent on erasing the historical truth of genocide in the residential schools in Canada.
Mr. Kenney has made quite an error again, and it's something that I just couldn't sit idly by and not say or do anything about.
Pagan, FSIN, and NDP education critic Sarah Hoffman are asking the Premier to fire both men.
We are calling on Mr. Kenney to fire his speechwriter effective immediately, Paul Bunner, and remove Mr. Champion from the curriculum review. And we would kind of see that as a gesture on Mr. Kenney's part to start rebuilding that reconciliation with the Indigenous people and rebuilding that trust.
In a statement to APTN, the Premier's office says that, of course, we believe any future curricula must include First Nations, Indigenous, and Métis perspectives. Their views and unique education needs have been captured in the curriculum development work done to date. It goes on to say, Dr. Champion is just one of over 300 people working on designing Alberta's new curriculum. To suggest that he and he alone holds the pen to this endeavor is simply not true. The Premier's office did not reply when asked if they intended to remove Bunner and Champion from their position. Chris Stewart, APTN National News, Edmonton.
Now we go to Winnipeg, where questions continue to linger after the abrupt dismissal of Bear Clan Patrol Executive Director James Favel last month. Favel had previously alleged his firing stemmed from overreach on the board's part, among other concerns. But the board of the Neighborhood Watch Group is disputing those claims on social media. Brittany Hobson explains.
The board of directors for Bear Clan Patrol are firing back after what they call a number of false allegations made by former executive director James Favel. In a statement posted to the group's Facebook page, the board addressed a number of the claims that have come out since Favel's firing last month. In it, they write, James Favel has not been forthcoming about the causes for his dismissal. Serious human resources issues came to light that were independently confirmed, and they are among the reasons for his dismissal. The board dismissed Favel July 31st. Shortly after, the longtime executive director and face of Bear Clan Patrol went public with claims he was bullied and betrayed by the current board. A workplace safety and health investigation was completed this year, stemming from a complaint about Favel's conduct, according to the statement. When the board attempted to address a formal staff complaint against Mr. Favel in March 2020, he responded by hiring a lawyer and attempting to dismiss the board. Concern over the diversity of the board and police involvement were also addressed. The board is made up of Indigenous, Filipino, Black, and white members. There are 2 directors on the board with current or former connections to the Winnipeg Police Service. The decision to post the statement online was critiqued by many, with the move being called unprofessional. A petition to reinstate Favel has been circulating online and is now sitting at nearly 2,500 signatures. APTN has reached out to Favel numerous times. He has declined interview requests. The organization's annual general meeting was set to take place August 24th, but has been postponed due to the pandemic. Brittany Hobson, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Canada's first female Minister of Finance should be widely lauded, but it comes with the taint of the WE scandal. and follows the resignation of Bill Morneau as both a minister and MP. APTN's Todd Lamarand has more on Prime Minister Trudeau's mini cabinet shuffle.
Execute the powers and trusts reposed in me as Deputy Prime Minister and Minister of Finance. So help me God.
And with this signature, Chrystia Freeland replaced Bill Morneau as Finance Minister, while Dominic LeBlanc becomes Intergovernmental Minister. Freeland later talked about her priorities.
The restart of our economy needs to be green. It also needs to be equitable. It needs to be inclusive. And we need to focus very much on jobs and growth.
Morneau had resigned the day before, after a meeting with Prime Minister Trudeau. Both Morneau and Trudeau are being investigated by Ethics Commissioner Mario Dion over their roles in the We Charity scandal. But Morneau insisted stepping down was due to not wanting to run again.
What I'm saying now is it's appropriate for the Prime Minister to find someone with a longer-term approach to being Finance Minister that I can give, since I'm not going to run again for federal office.
Trudeau did not directly answer if he tried to refuse Morneau's resignation.
As we look to this next phase of rebuilding the Canadian economy in the coming year and the coming years, we need a team that is focused on the future. It has been a privilege to work with Bill, and I wish him all the very best in the coming years. But I'm excited about the work that the team is going to have in front of us in the coming months and years.
Trudeau also announced today that Parliament is prorogued. It will resume in the fall with a new throne speech, whereas minority government could fall under a successful non-confidence motion by the opposition. He called his pre-COVID government's priorities out of date.
We need to reset the approach of this government for a recovery, to build back better. And those are big, important decisions, and we need to present that to Parliament and gain the confidence of Parliament to move forward on this ambitious plan.
NDP leader Jagmeet Singh deflected when asked if he'd support a vote of no confidence and force an election in the fall.
Our focus is on how can we get help to people. If the Liberal government continues to focus on helping their close friends instead of helping people, if they continue to be caught up in fighting themselves instead of helping families that are worried about the future, then we'll have to look at all options.
The throne speech is scheduled for September 23rd. Todd Lamarand, APTN National News, Ottawa.
We have to take a short break. When we come back, a remote Clecho community in the Northwest Territories has finished an all-season road. Welcome back to your APTN National News Weekend. A handful of Indigenous entrepreneurs have been chosen to participate in a new pilot program that will help them break into the Northwest market. APTN's Sarah Connor spoke with the program's only Yukon participant to see how she's getting ready for the expansion of her business.
If your heat is too high and you see them brown really fast, you want to just remove the whole pan from the heat for a little while.
Teresa Ward is known for her bannock mix, and soon her product will be on the shelves in the Northwest United States. Ward is the grandmother behind Grandma Teresa's Yukon Bannock, a ready-to-make bannock mix sold in stores across the Yukon. She's been chosen to participate in a new pilot project run by the Trade Commissioner offices of British Columbia, Yukon, and Seattle. Along with 5 other Indigenous-owned small companies, the Trade Commissioners will help Ward export her mix into the U.S. Northwest market. Ward is the only participant chosen from the Yukon.
I'm pretty excited. I'm really happy that they selected somebody, First Nations, going to from the Yukon and going to be doing this great big project. I don't know where it's going to take me, but it sounds pretty overwhelming.
Ward is a recent graduate of Yukon Struck Startup Bootcamp, a program that helps early-stage entrepreneurs develop and strategize their business ideas. Ward says the camp was instrumental in helping her get her product noticed by the Trade Commissioner of Canada.
I couldn't really understand a lot of the business language, so I'm like, pitch deck, margins, profit margins, so it was really interesting just to do that, so I had to do a lot of Googling myself and self-learning.
Originally from Tlingit First Nation, Ward is eager to showcase her product, something she says needs more representation in the mainstream market.
So I think it's really nice to start showcasing our culture, and to be able to explore and get it out to the rest of the world is really awesome.
Ward will soon meet with the Northwestern American and Canadian Commissioner offices to discuss more avenues for her product, like ready-made mix with different flavors. Ward says she hopes her success can inspire other First Nations people to be entrepreneurs and to go into business for themselves.
Go to the boot camp, go to the Construct boot camp, pick up as much training place as you can, and just feel out people, go to the different stores, you know, do a survey, get yourself a little survey, so find out who your target audience is. Yeah, so go get her.
Sarah Connors, APTN National News, Haines Junction.
A remote Cleacho community in the Northwest Territories will soon be connected by an all-season road. Local residents are also helping out and receiving training in construction jobs for the project. Our reporter, Charlotte Marriott Jacobs, takes us to that job site.
This isn't your average job site, but a turning point in history for the small Cleacho community of Wati, Northwest Territories. A dozen students from the region are training for the certification in heavy equipment operation and shaping their future, quite literally, as they help build a 97-kilometer all-season road which connects the 400-person community of Wati to the rest of the NWT. Kimberly Football from the neighboring Cleacho community of Wekwati says access to similar training opportunities is a challenge.
But is this machine at zero energy state?
Yeah. Wanting to leave her office job behind, she says she's enjoyed this experience.
When we got in the ditch in one of those muddy areas, and one of the rock trucks went in first. So for it to get out, we had to use a dozer, and I was on the dozer.
After 2 weeks of classroom safety and maintenance training, students learn in rock trucks, excavators, and dozers.
Well, you got your sprocket, but remember what drives your machine.
Instructor Scott Russell says the real-world experience will greatly improve employability.
We're not setting up mock areas where they're digging a hole and filling the hole, or putting a pile of gravel and let the bulldozer fill it in. We're actually building road on a real job site.
For activating the hydraulics.
Okay.
The new road also means new mines near Wati. Joseph Simpson says it's important that the Cleacho get first access to infrastructure and resource jobs. And it's training like this that will help them protect their land.
Pretty much watch the land, the first thing for me. Yeah, make sure there's no debris on the land, and make sure we pick up after ourselves, and if we see somebody doing something like that, we make sure we report it.
Yeah, check that daily. Pamela Moosnose of Wati is hopeful that year-round access will improve the quality of life for her community.
So if people were to buy a house, a trailer, they can transport it here. It'll be easier instead of waiting for winter. Yeah, and when the plane comes into in the fall, it's always foggy, so the plane's it's always delayed and canceled.
Construction of the roughly $4 million all-season road is set for completion by fall of 2021. The 5-week program wrapped up this past Saturday, and students here say they're excited for the road that lies ahead. Charlotte Marriott Jacobs, APTN National News, Wati.
We have to take a short break, but when we come back, a PEGWIS member has received an award of distinction. The Manitoba Arts Council has awarded their award of distinction to Alan Grey Eyes. Grey Eyes from PEGWIS First Nation is a prominent figure throughout the Indigenous music scene in Manitoba and across Canada. Daryl Stranger spoke with Grey Eyes earlier this week about the award.
It's pretty humbling and pretty overwhelming. I gotta be honest, I'm not used to being in the spotlight, so receiving this award is a little scary as well.
Alan Greyeyes has been a part of the Indigenous music industry for over a decade, and he's done a lot for musicians and the public over the years. For example, he established the Sakahiwe Festival, formerly known as Aboriginal Music Week, which aims to make music accessible to less fortunate Indigenous families in Winnipeg. He also helped launch the Manitoba Festival, the Indigenous Music Awards, and he is on the board for the Indigenous and Rap category for the Junos.
I think it's really important to acknowledge that Alan is doing fantastic work on behalf of all Manitobans, but really for the Indigenous community in Manitoba, we can see the incredible behind-the-scenes work that he's doing and it certainly doesn't appear he's doing it for himself. He's doing it for others and for his community, so that is a really exciting thing to honor and value.
Greyeyes says the award is nice to receive, but he is not after the recognition for the work he does.
It's not important at all. I think I gotta do stuff because I like the idea of doing the right thing because it's the right thing to do, and not because it's gonna get me recognition or Facebook likes or engagement on social media.
Greyeyes also represents Indigenous talent like Kaylee Cardinal. Cardinal is the 2020 Juno winner for the Indigenous Artist of the Year. She says without Greyeyes' help, she does not know where she would be today.
I would say that working with him, it's just been absolutely life-changing for me. He's not only supported me so much with grants, but he's also he's so hyper aware of all the very important details, which are things that I tend to skip over often. So it's been a really beautiful relationship for me, and it's been a way for me to I've learned a lot from him.
International recognition for Indigenous music is next on Greyeyes' mind.
Hopefully when the pandemic lets up and things start to get better for audiences and our artists, we'll be doing some concerts in Paris. And I'm also working with the High Commission in London, England on some more streaming concerts, and so they're going to be helping us on the ground, engaging audiences over there and sharing some of the incredible music coming out of the Indigenous music community here in Canada.
Daryl Stranger, APTN National News, Winnipeg.
Joseph Gosnell, lead negotiator on a historic treaty for the Nisga'a Nation in British Columbia, has passed away. Gosnell has battled cancer for a long time, and he died in his home at the age of 84. Gosnell was president of the Nisga'a Nation for the province's first modern-day treaty. That was finalized with both BC and the federal governments in 2000. He traveled the world as an ambassador to the nation and received recognition for his contributions. Gosnell received the Order of BC Award in 1999 and was named a champion to the Order of Canada in 2006. Current Nisga'a president, Eva Clayton, says their nation lost a giant.
He was a man who carried himself quietly and with dignity. But when he spoke, he was heard. He was the Nisga'a Nation's ambassador. He left a legacy. This legacy lives on in his families.
That's all the news for this weekend. I'm Michelle Karlenzig, and thank you for tuning in. Have a good rest of your weekend.